All right, guys. In this video, I'm going to talk about how I almost wasted $18,000 on my wife's engagement ring. Now, take you down a memory lane, not too much of a memory lane. We got married last year, engaged 2024, known each other for about 4 years. So, yeah, I mean, where do we start? So, back in 2024, that was the year me and my wife, we got engaged. We got engaged in September. We were doing some ring shopping during the summer. We already talked about, we knew we wanted to get married. I confirmed, hey, we're gonna get married, so there's no surprise when I ask. I think that's a pretty smart thing to do. Wanted her to be in the decision making when it came to getting a ring, because also didn't want to buy a ring and spend money on a ring that she was not a fan of. And so I brought her along for the journey. We both, where we both work, we work pretty close to each other, probably about 8 to 10 minutes away. There was a jeweler, only jeweler that we knew. I've never been ring shopping. It was Tiffany's. So we decided to go to Tiffany's to check out rings. And when we went to go and check out rings, man, when I tell you the prices were crazy, they were crazy. It was not something that I was prepared for. So for me, not having experience buying rings and just hearing stupid stuff that's like promoted like online, where you gotta save 3 to 6 months worth of your salary, etc., I thought the ring prices were going to be expensive. And so everything I was seeing was lining up with the prices that I had kind of had in my mind that I was going to need to put away for a salary. And so fast forward, kind of like the ring that we had narrowed down on, that would fit our budget but really wouldn't fit our budget, was going to cost $18,000. And when we looked at this ring, it didn't feel like the rings that you see online. I mean, when you look online and you see people flashing like these rings, like they're fat diamonds and super clear, and they look really good like on social media. But the rings that we were looking at, like, for the budget that we had, that I could kind of stretch out to make work, it just wasn't looking like that. And so when we're looking at Tiffany's, the rings that were, looked like kind of the ones that you see online, cost like $75,000. I think the closest was maybe like $50,000 to $60,000. And me being, kind of like ignorant and not knowing, kind of like how diamonds like work, I just thought this was crazy. I was like, I don't understand how people are paying $75,000 for an engagement ring. This is like crazy. Definitely wasn't looking at anything like, in that kind of direction. We kind of landed on one that was coming out to about $18,000. This was like after taxes. And I decided, okay, we're going to put a down payment on this ring, right? Got the go ahead from my wife at the time. And, we decided that this was going to be like the ring. And so put the down payment for it. Hadn't yet collected the ring. Was going to finish that payment, I think, within the next like week or so after I got, paid. And when we went home that same night, something just didn't feel right for my wife. And, I love her so much for this, because this saved me a lot of money and set us up like to be in a better position financially now. But she really was, didn't feel good about it. She knew that, the cost was pretty expensive. It's $18,000 for just a ring. It was definitely something that, we'd be paying off, because I think the thing I was going to select was a down payment and then like a low interest or maybe a zero interest like payment kind of like plan. So something that we're going to carry into kind of like our marriage. And she just didn't feel good about it, and for me, super ego at the time, I was thinking like, man, like, no, I need to pay, it needs to be 3 to 6 months worth of salary, because that's what they say like online. I don't have any guidance like in this area. She shut it down, and I'm thankful that she shut it down. She said, I think you need to go back and ask for like a refund. I think we can look, I can talk to my family to see, where they've been able to source like their rings, because they've been able to get some nice diamonds without having to pay this crazy amount. And my wife really pushed and challenged, like, hey, I don't want us to carry this financial burden going in to our marriage. So I thank her for that. So I was a little bit kind of upset about it, because I was like, oh, like, this is the one we landed on, like, and I was more kind of focused on like price, and I was like, this is the one like I should pay. But I agreed with her, hey, we'll return it. I hit up the person the next day and see if we can get a refund. for like the down payment that I put down on the ring. So did that, and same night, I'll go on YouTube and I'm starting to look at like, diamonds to try to kind of get like a breakdown, of like, what should I be looking for. And then this whole topic really popped up, which enlightened me to the whole like diamond like business. And it was this concept of natural diamonds versus lab grown diamonds. And up until this point, I did not know anything about it. When I was shopping at Tiffany's with my wife, they don't tell you that, the reason why it costs a little bit more is they're natural. And I don't think they even have like lab grown, like kind of like diamonds. But as I was getting a breakdown, I learned, that natural diamonds are more expensive, and that there's an alternative option that's called lab grown, but they're still real diamonds. The only main difference between like the diamonds is really how they're sourced. One's sourced and produced in a lab. The other one is more organically kind of like sourced, which changes kind of like the cost. But from what I was seeing, I was like, you can get the diamonds that I've been seeing like on social media for a fraction of the cost if they're lab grown, and they look better than this, pretty, I'd say it was a pretty ugly ring that we're gonna get, for $18,000 at Tiffany's, and it was pretty small. And I was like, what, this is crazy. So for me, I'm still kind of skeptical at the time. I'm like, all right, like, is lab grown real? So now I'm going through this rabbit hole on YouTube, like, is lab grown diamonds like real? And finally, I get to the consensus that yeah, they're like real. It's just the main thing is just how they're sourced. So I decided I want to go in this direction. So now I'm going online. I'm going crazy, just looking at like, okay, what are lab grown diamonds? Do they have to offer? Trying to find jewelers that like have them. And I see that, man, like we can get some really fat rocks that are like a third of the cost of what I was gonna spend, that $18,000 at Tiffany's for this ring. Getting a lab grown ring that's gonna pop and represent pretty well. And so we went in the direction. My wife's like family, we worked with them to go find the jeweler that they go to, and they go to a jeweler out in like Sacramento, out in Sacramento, California. So we went up there. We live in the Bay, so we drove up there to go check out what options they have. Trust a jeweler, kind of like small, local one. They had lab grown diamonds, and from there we pretty much found a ring that worked well for my wife, at least from a diamond standpoint, that was much larger than what we're looking at Tiffany's, a third of the cost, definitely within a better budget, and still represented like pretty well, right? And wasn't something that like she would be ashamed of wearing, or I'd be ashamed to say that like I put on her hand. And when it comes to rings, it's supposed to be symbolic, right, of just the love you have for each other. But I kind of wanted to make it a little bit special, right? Like we're not like terrible when it comes to like how we're doing like financially, and I wanted to show I put a little bit of thought and effort and money into it. But some people might be able to afford a little bit less, but that's okay, right? There's no shame like in that. But when it comes to lab grown diamonds, man, lab grown diamonds can open up so much stuff. You can get like some gorgeous like rings, some really nice rings that look like they cost more than they actually do, based off going lab grown versus trying to go like natural, right? Like for me, I felt like going the whole natural route was just pure ego. It's just pure ego. I didn't see like anything that looks better. We got a way better like cut diamond going like kind of like lab grown. So we ended up finding like a lab grown diamond at the end of the summer of 2024, and then shortly after, in the month of September 2024, was able to propose. When people saw that rock, they're like, dang, how much did you spend on that? I mean, like, they're thinking that I spent like probably like 20, 30. They're thinking I probably spent like $75,000 like on that ring, because it's so big and it's so nice, and it pops. But for me, I felt good because I got something that looks good like on her hand, but also like we didn't break the bank to like to get this. And that's, I think, the moral of the story for me. I think when you're thinking about diamonds and like jewelry and that, like you want to get stuff that looks well. You want to get stuff that looks good. But I think it's important to kind of figure out, like, are you getting like a good return on like your investment? And for me, I felt like I got a good return on my investment from this, because I got something that looks nice and looks more expensive than it is. It is probably still expensive for most people's kind of budget, but for me and for how I have things budget, it definitely fit better than paying $18,000 like for a ring. you want to get something that kind of like works for you, and that's what I encourage, is to get something that works for you, works for your budget. Do your research. Strip the ego aside when it comes to lab grown diamonds versus natural diamonds. I mean, again, for me, the main difference that I can see is just the way that they're sourced. I used even a little diamond tester on it, and it shows up well. It reads as if it's a real diamond, so it's not fake. I think there's just a lot of ego that goes into it. People like to say, oh, it's natural diamonds, and flaunt the cost, but ultimately you can have a natural, from what I see, you can have a natural diamond that looks worse than a lab grown, and people think the lab grown costs more. And for me, it's more about the perception. How does the ring look? How did it look on her hand? Did she feel confident wearing it? Do I feel confident like showing it off? Do I feel good with the price? But ultimately, I'm grateful that she pushed me to not waste money, because honestly, like, probably 2 years later, I'd probably still be paying off that ring. $18,000, that's not a, that's not a lot of people just have $18,000 just throwing a ring. And even if I was putting a third of a down payment down, like at the time, like that's still a lot of money that you got to pay. Other things could have arose. And for us, by doing that, I was able to put more money towards our wedding, which was like 8 months later down like the road, which using the money for that was way better like used than wasting it on a small ring from Tiffany & Co. No shade to them, but just not for me. And so again, I'd recommend, like, if you're out shopping for rings, fellas, like, check out lab grown. I had a boy that got engaged last year, and I was giving him like advice early last year, and I remember giving him advice kind of like on my journey when it came to like looking at rings. Was able to help set him up, with going down the lab grown route too, and he's able to get something super nice for his fiance, without breaking the bank, breaking the budget. But I don't know how many people are educated on this, right? I truly don't. I don't know. I don't, in the jewelry industry, from what I've seen, I don't think that they market it so much that way. I think you have to kind of really know like what you're doing. But, I even remember too, I was at, I think we were finalizing like the ring, there was somebody from the older generation, and they were like very adamant on only getting like natural like diamonds when they were shopping for some other kind of like jewelry. And after I just done the research, I was like, dang, like, for me, I feel like you're getting played, right? Like, I'm like, man, if the only thing that's different between them is just how like they're sourced. And I mean, some make the case that like, going lab grown is more environmentally better or more ethical than doing like the natural, because of, the conditions in which natural diamonds are sourced. But I was like, if the only difference is that, and they show up better, like, I don't know why people are tripping. I don't know why people have so much of a fixation on it has to be natural, right? Like, I think how it looks is way more important. And that's kind of like what we did. We decided to go with like what looks better and what pops better. And it looked like she's rocking a 20K, 30K, if not more expensive kind of like ring. That wasn't even close to that cost. So yeah, when that lady came into that small mom and pop like jeweler, she was just shutting down. I was like, okay, I can see how, we've been conditioned to believe that this, like, you got to go this kind of like route. So that's why it's important to do your research when it comes to like buying stuff. I think it's important for us, like, as consumers, to be more wiser like consumers, right? Like, just blindly going into making purchasing decisions without doing like strong due diligence and research is important. And I think the jewelry industry preys on ignorant people like myself at the time, that trying to do something nice and loving for the person that I love at the time, have no knowledge. And the conversation never came up. When I was at Tiffany Co., the conversation of natural versus like lab grown never even came up. And I felt that I was only priced into being able to get an $18,000 like ring, and that was like the only option, the best thing. And I honestly didn't feel good about the decision. But for me, I would have been the sucker in the situation, because I just don't have the knowledge. So that's why I'm making this video, like, to get a little bit more knowledge and information out. But we got to get better as being consumers and understanding, are we being taken advantage of? Is there better deals? Is there ways to get more value out of the dollars we're spending? And for me, the engagement ring that I went with, that's lab grown, we got way more value out of it than me paying for an $18,000 ring that didn't look as good, that didn't pop as well, that I'd probably still be paying for today, and where I would have had less money to put towards our actual wedding. So that's kind of it. That's my journey. Shout out to my wife. that was a good confirmation sign that she's the one for me, helping us make really good, sound financial decisions, because that would have been a bad, costly lesson, and I would have been pissed finding out that I could have got like a ring like a third of that after actually buying like that ring and having her wear like, you know, the $18,000 little ring from Tiffany & Co. So that's it for the video. If you like the content, hit the like button, subscribe. I'm going to continue to be talking about my financial journey, things that I regret spending money on, things that I've enjoyed spending money on, different investment vehicles that I have set up, because I want to create a strong community of people that are, you know, disciplined and enjoying the way that they're handling their money and having a better financial tomorrow. Take care.